So another key part of Moreno's philosophy is this mystical concept that he describes as the autonomous healing center within. And both Jacob Moreno and Zerka Moreno highlight this as one of the most important aspects of psychodrama philosophy. Zerka says that the purpose of all therapies, including psychodrama, is to clear away some of the barriers that prevent the client or the protagonist from tapping into and accessing their autonomous healing center within. That our task as therapists or as psychodramatists, as group workers, is to lead the client and help them clear away some of the things that are preventing them from healing themselves. So this concept is really self-empowering, really embodies some of the 6 trauma-informed principles for this to be really the crux of psychodrama philosophy. Helps promote safety in that it's relocating the power, the leverage, the place from which change comes from within the client rather than within the therapist or the organization or the agency. We're not agencies or therapists providing a medication or providing a treatment to a client, but that we're helping clients access the medicine which exists within them already. We're helping them tap into their autonomous healing center. Moreno describes this autonomous healing center as existing deep within the self, and that it's largely untouched by words and can be activated and accessed through action. So this autonomous healing center is what we're trying to tap into and help our clients, our groups, access. The Morenos talk about how, as therapists, as providers, as leaders, we aren't going to be able to help our clients tap into this autonomous healing center unless we first learned how to tap into this within ourselves. That we have to do our own personal work, our own healing. We have to be able to locate and access and tap into our own spontaneity, creativity, and our own autonomous healing center within in order to help a client to do the same. So there's a big emphasis in psychodrama training and in the psychodrama culture and community in professionals doing their own personal growth work. And it's a part of just about every psychodrama training. This autonomous healing center concept, it really dismantles some of the power dynamics that are usually inherent in the client and therapist relationship. It positions the locus of power, therapeutic power, within the client rather than within the therapist or within the relationship or the agency. It explicitly tells the client that they're the source of their own healing, that we're just here to guide them and to help them tap into that for themselves. So this concept of the autonomous healing center, it also really embodies the importance of peer support, which is the 3rd trauma-informed principle. It really positions the therapist, the client, the protagonist, and the rest of the group all as peers. That we're all human beings. We all have one autonomous healing center within us. We can only tap into our own, and oftentimes we need each other to help us remove some of the barriers so that we can heal ourselves. In psychodrama groups, after the psychodrama action, and when we move into the sharing process, it's actually pretty common for the therapist or the psychodramatist to share personally from their own experience about how they relate to the protagonist in the same or similar way that the rest of the group does. That we explicitly acknowledge that the therapist, the psychodramatist, is part of the group, not above the group, and that we're human and that we're within the group. So it really embodies this principle of peer support from trauma-informed care. The belief in an autonomous healing center also promotes collaboration and mutuality, which is the 4th trauma-informed principle. It highlights this sense of reverence and respect for each person, a belief, a strong conviction in the goodness and the power, the healing potential within every client, no matter what they've experienced, what they're struggling with, who they are, what their background is, that we believe this exists within every client. The idea of the Autonomous Healing Center also cultivates the fifth trauma-informed principle of empowerment, voice, and choice, in that it really highlights a respect for the client's voice, believing that the client can find and tap into their own autonomous healing center when we give them choices and honor their choices, that we follow the protagonist throughout the psychodrama process, and that we're trying to empower them to heal themselves, to tap into their own autonomous healing center. So this concept is really embedded within many different cultural belief systems, many different religious belief systems, and it's a new idea. It's something that many indigenous philosophies subscribe to, many mystical philosophies and spiritual traditions, religious belief systems suggest a similar idea. And perhaps Moreno was inspired by all the different religions that he studied when he came up and articulated this idea in a psychotherapy context. So we not only believe that an autonomous healing center exists within each individual, but that it also exists within each group, within each community, each family, each organization, and within society as a whole. And so as group workers, psychodramatists, our task is to cultivate that peer support and mutual aid that helps the group to tap into their collective autonomous healing center, the healing power of the group as a whole, or the healing power of the organization as a whole, the community as a whole, or within all of society. So this concept really emphasizes that every participant in the group, every part of an organization, of a community, each human within society is a therapeutic agent for every other person in the group, community, organization, or society. So in thinking about this concept of the Autonomous Healing Center, I want to challenge you to reflect on how might you further empower your clients as co-healers in their own treatment process? And how can you further affirm the dignity and worth of each client and each colleague, each community member that you work with? How can we really demonstrate in action our commitment to this belief in the healing power of each person? Again, this concept is not new, and you can find this articulated in other language and other trauma therapies. For example, in internal family systems approach, there's a concept called the self with a capital S. And the self is kind of this core aspect of an individual that's curious, that's compassionate, that's courageous and confident. And the healing of other parts often comes by unblending them and putting them in relationship to the self. Similarly, in EMDR, which is one of the top gold tier treatments for PTSD, there's this theory of change called the adaptive information processing model. And in EMDR, we believe that through the EMDR intervention and the bilateral stimulation, that we're helping a client connect an old traumatic memory that's been fragmented and disconnected from all the adaptive information within the self and within the brain. We're helping to connect that memory to all the adaptive information that exists within an individual. And that integration of the adaptive information into the traumatic memory network provides a experience of healing, that the client's brain is healing themselves. And we could call it the adaptive information processing model. We could call it the self in IFS, and we could call it the Autonomous Healing Center in psychodrama. And I'm sure there's other approaches that have different names for it as well.